So a stereotype to me is just categorizing a group of people under like one label. That's what I say a stereotype is.
Stereotype is you're putting me in the category with everyone else because I'm this person and I'm automatically like the other person you see that's looking like me.
A stereotype would be a statement that you apply to a whole based on your experiences with probably one or two.
I think it's a perception of someone before you even really get to know them, just off of what you learn from like culture and customs, not necessarily actually knowing a person, just seeing their image.
I would define a stereotype as that stigma that people put on a particular group of people. For example, black people, fried chicken, white people, and I don't know, sunburn or whatever, or white people can't dance, stuff like that. It's just what people hear and automatically associate with a particular group of people.
So a stereotype is basically an overgeneralization of a group of people, and sometimes it's not even. Many times it's not even an overgeneralization. Sometimes it's just a complete lie.
Stereotype is the oversimplification of the misunderstood.
I am a senior studying applied behavioral science, which is a mix between psychology and sociology. So it's a hybrid of the two, which is really interesting. I was a sociology major initially, and then I took a break from school, a long break. And then I went back and this was being offered, and I was like, oh my gosh, I love it. This is because the two go hand in hand. I am a writer and producer. I am working on a book about being single in your 30s, the joys, sorrow, and pain of being single in your 30s and how you're perceived, once you cross that hump. I grew up in West Virginia, where we are 3% of the population, and I went to private school, kindergarten through 6th grade. Then when I went to public school, though, it was like, oh, she talks like a white girl. I even had, white people, well, you're black, kinda, because they fed into a stereotype that black women talk a certain way. Their interests, you can only be interested in certain things. You can only read certain things. You can only do certain things. And that's just not true. And so I'm saying all that to say is, people can come in and they deposit things. And even at a very early age, just being a black woman at an early age, we're just told so many untruths about ourselves. And then that stuff works to come in and mutate the DNA of who we really are.
I'm a licensed therapist. I do a lot of traveling. I do spoken word. And I have a lot of deep thought, for those who nowadays are kind of shallow. The first stereotype that I think of when I think of African American women is that all black girls are bitches, and that black women are too strong, that black women are too strict on their kids, stuff like that. Black women can't keep no man, and I don't understand, because I'm black and I ain't none of them things. I just joined the military not too long ago, and so now I'm doing temporary duty at another base, and I'm in a office with a lot of people outside of my race, let me say that. I'm the only one of me in my office. I have a whole bunch of other men outside of my race. And I realized that people walk on eggshells when they're around me, and they talk differently when they're around me. And I've heard them say things like, uh-oh, you know, don't say that around Stevenson because she gonna get offended, or, you know what I mean? And my thing is like, you don't even know me, for real. Regardless of whether I'm black or whether I'm too strong, that's just an assumption and a stereotype that has been ingrained in their heads generationally. You see what I'm saying? So regardless of what kind of personality or presence I have, it was already too late for me by the time I got there. So I'm dealing with that now.
I study human sexuality, not sex itself, but the emotional, physiological, and biological components of sexuality, and particularly how that relates to Black America, Pan-Africanism, and its impact on us as a culture. I think the problem is when we buy into only the stereotype. There are all types of people across the spectrum that exist in any culture. The fact that we are isolated, marginalized, and mischaracterized for the same behaviors that people have is unfair. There are some white men that we met, and they wanted to hang out more, and the casino was in the hotel. Security stopped us, and they said, well, they can't go with you guys. And, you know, I'm dressed to the nines, not that that should matter, but you know, they were basically suggesting that we were prostitutes. And I was like, woo, let me woo-saw something, bring this in. I'm sure had I not been a woman of color, that experience would not have occurred. We asked for the manager, and they said, you know, listen, you know, we just get, you know, so much traffic. I'm really sorry. And I was like, oh, so you stopped every woman in the hotel? Every woman, you stop them because this happens so much. And he couldn't give me an answer. He was like, no, you know, come back, you know, we'll, you know, give you drinks. You do not get to substitute alcohol for calling me a whore. Yes, I get irritated, but everyone isn't equipped with the information that I have. And I have a responsibility to be cognizant of it and not to absorb it.
We're either, we have to be like goody two-shoes and like not even fully black, or we have to be, you know, just basically video dancers or something like that.
You can even see it in TV shows, social media, the way they portray black women, the angry black woman stereotype.
I think that black women are very sexualized in the media. And even in powerful black roles such as Scandal or being Mary Jane, a lot of times women in power that are black have to be somebody's side chick instead of just like having their own identity.
I feel like black women are stereotyped as being bitter, being mean, sexual objects.
The booty, it's all about the booty. It's all about the booty, and I don't know what to say. It's disturbing, for really, because so many young girls don't have that role model that I had in my house of women to show them that it's not the way, and it's not about that.
So, the media contributes to the stereotype of the African American woman by showing this hyper-sexualized version of who we are. So it's almost like a caricature.
You have the Jezebel that has been applied to African American women, which is this hyper-sexualized version of black women. And you see it everywhere. You see it in not only music videos, you see it on television. There's this lack of self-control, this lack of morals.
I think the question is, how does the media disempower the African American woman? But more specifically, the media definitely portrays the African American woman to be just shallow and materialistic and just very one-dimensional. And it's kind of sad, because in actuality, a lot of women, black women, are much deeper than that. But nowadays, girls look at TV and they think, well, that's really all I can be. That's the way to be to make money or to get to the top. It is kind of almost very certain that somebody's going to develop some type of body image issue, some type of self-esteem issue. And once you have low self-esteem in place, negative self-image starts to develop. And then you just kind of go on a negative spiral.
When I see some of the shows, particularly reality shows, you're going to be most easily demonized and taken advantage of when you have the lowest self-esteem. There's a social advantage, there's a psychological advantage to having misconception always exist. There is no validity to it.
The sapphire characteristic was the one that was almost created with Amos and Andy in the 1950s, because one of the main characters was named Sapphire. And so from that point, we see her personality, her characteristics being assigned to the term Sapphire. And she was a very outspoken and vocal person. She chastised her husband. She pointed her finger. She was shrill. She had her hands on her hips. And sort of a generally combative kind of black female.
And just what's wrong with me?
What kind of a husband has you been? You ain't got no romance. You is lazy. You is shiftless. You ain't got no ambition, and you ain't got the backbone of a jellyfish.
But now, honey...
And them is your good point.
It, I think, has developed more into this quite combative black woman characteristic, sort of called the angry black woman of modern day.
Early on, plantation owners recognized that to control the enslaved population, you had to find ways to make the enslaved people less than human, to dehumanize them in many ways, and certainly slavery was very efficient in doing that. But they also recognized that women were at the center of the family. And so in order to keep people under control, you found ways to control the family. And the best way to do that, apparently, was to dehumanize African American women. And so you attack the head of the family in terms of the cultural purveyors. Then you were able to keep everyone under control. And so this is at a time when white women are expected to be on a pedestal. And so white women are not sexualized, at least in the mind of white men, the way black women are. And so if you are an owner of enslaved women, you can take liberties with those women, liberties that you cannot take with white women. But in order to do that, in order to justify that behavior, in order to be able to live with oneself after having victimized someone like that, then you simply put the onus on the victim. And so black women became the mammy, the Jezebel, because it was so different from the role that white women supposedly played.
We have always been inclusive and understood that we didn't always have control of our bodies. And that's another important part too, because when you don't have control of your body, then you realize that you are a pawn. Whenever someone decides they want to use you, they will do that. And that same person is now the person who is describing or defining your sexuality, even as you have no defense against what they're doing to you. And one of those stereotypes, or several of those stereotypes, came right out of slavery. And even in slavery, we have the mammy, we have the Jezebel, who was the loose woman. The thing was that African American women were so sensual and so promiscuous that white men really weren't raping them. It was the black women that were throwing themselves. Their sexuality was just so wild and uncontrolled that what could a man do and what could a white man do in the face of that? So you have the two extremes. Rarely was there anything in between, and very little space for anything else. So the stereotypes were formed very early, and they carried over, because we know after slavery, this was what people were reading, and this is what they were thinking. So this was the image that they had of women of color, and they formed their opinions around that. What becomes many times frustrating for a lot of women, especially those older women who understand and went through some of those challenges, even going back to the 50s and 60s and 70s, now see that women, younger women, have the ability to make more decisions, to have more agency, to define themselves, and choose to use the stereotypes that have defined them for so long when they had no agency to fall into those roles.
And they do affect us. These are not innocent things. When we go out to get jobs, when we're interacting with people outside of our communities, we have problems because there are these assumptions already that we are different, that there's something wrong with us, that we are not civilized, that we're barbaric, that we are this or we are that. And I think, at least in part, we are now responsible for perpetuating that.
A group of younger women that says, well, I just happen to choose and I'm not like that, and this is just for show and it doesn't matter. And women are saying it does matter. The image that we put out there to this day in the 21st century matters, because we're still fighting that stereotype. Now it may not be the Jezebel, that may not be the term, but it's the gold digger, or it's the hoochie mom, or it's the club girl. So the terms have changed, but the stereotype really hasn't.
In our minds, we think that, oh, we're so far outside of that. We're not. My parents grew up under Jim Crow. So, we're still digging ourselves out of hundreds of years of oppression in this country. And with that oppression comes a lack of self-worth and a lack of understanding of who we are.
Everyone has to own accountability in the images that we see. If we are viewers, we participate. If you are the performers on the show, you participate. If you are the producer or creator of the show, you participate. No one is exempt.
The Black agenda, needs to get back on track, because right now something is completely off.
Many times, what we hear is that, well, it's my choice. It's my choice to be on the video with whatever on or not on. It's my choice to be on the show saying whatever it is I'm saying or not saying. It's my choice to wear this outfit. And yes, it is your choice. But what we have lost, I think, is the understanding that the choice for women of color is not always a singular choice, that there is a plurality there, that it's not just you. We used to hear In my generation, every time you go out, you're representing the race. You first it's your family, you're representing the household, and you're representing the race.
And you can't have what you say. You create your world with your words. And I believe that. And so that is a behavioral science principle, and that's also found in scripture.
There are hundreds out there who have taken it upon themselves to do something not only individually but collectively. There are groups that are working because they understand if you don't have a good self-image and self-worth, then you're going to be unable to combat everything that's out there and you'll fall victim.
When you are not reminded, when you don't walk with your neck so stretched out, and your hands are in your pockets, and your head is bowed, you will fall victim to the predatory approaches that society is going to make at you.
If I know that I am worthy, if I know that I'm an integral part of the society, if I know that I'm important, if I know that I am beautiful, if I latch on to these things, then it's going to be harder for you to oppress me.
That doesn't mean, just because it's a stereotype doesn't mean that we have to live up to the stereotype. You know what I mean?
I think African American women have a lot more power than they know that they have.